I met Marissa 2 years ago on a rainy Wednesday night at a coffee shop that smelled like cinnamon and quiet heartbreak. She was sitting by the window, sketching something on a napkin, her hair falling forward as she bit the tip of her pen. I remember thinking that she looked like someone who'd never stay long enough to explain herself, and I was right. Our relationship started simply: movies on Fridays, long walks on Sundays, small arguments that ended with laughter and apologies whispered into the night. But even in the beginning, there was something between us that I couldn't quite name. A crowd, a noise, her friends. Marissa had this tight-knit group: Tasha, Finn, Chloe, Adrian, and Emma. They'd known each other since high school, a little world that didn't seem to have room for outsiders. I used to joke that dating Marissa meant dating all of them, and she'd laugh, kissing me and saying, "They're my people, Ethan. You'll love them too." I tried. God knows I tried. But slowly, the laughter started to fade from our dates. The texts came later, the calls shorter. She'd show up tired, distracted, always rushing somewhere else. When she wasn't with me, she was with them, planning parties, attending brunches, game nights, weekend trips. I began to feel like a bookmark in her story, useful only to hold her place while she lived the parts she truly enjoyed. Still, I told myself it was fine, that she needed her friends. That love meant patience. Our first anniversary was coming up, and I wanted to make it special. I rented a small cabin by the lake, the same one where we'd gone on our first trip together. I even took 2 days off work to decorate it with fairy lights, photos, and her favorite candles. But when I told her, she sighed softly, her voice apologetic but distant. "Oh, Ethan, I can't. Tasha's throwing a party this weekend. Everyone's going. You know how it is." I didn't actually. I didn't understand why our anniversary, our one day, was less important than another night with her friends. I remember staring at her, trying to find anger, but all I felt was the slow ache of being small in someone's life. "They'll be there next week too," I said quietly. "We won't." Marissa frowned. "Ethan, you're being unfair. They count on me. I can't just bail." That night, I canceled the cabin reservation. I didn't tell her, but something in me began to cool, a quiet resignation that maybe I was the only one still trying to keep us from falling apart. Over the next few months, the pattern repeated. Missed dinners, forgotten plans, excuses that started to sound rehearsed. When my brother got married, she said she'd come, but the day before the ceremony, she texted, "I'm so sorry, babe. Chloe's having a meltdown. I have to be there for her." When my mother was admitted to the hospital for a minor surgery, I sat alone in the waiting room. Marissa sent a message saying she'd visit later that evening, but she never came. That night, she posted a story of herself at Finn's birthday dinner. I stare at my phone screen, the hospital's fluorescent light, making everything look too sharp, too real. I told myself it was temporary, that she'd realize how far she drifted. But she didn't. Every conversation about balance turned into apologies, followed by the same behavior. "I'll fix it, I promise," she'd say, wrapping her arms around me. "Next week we'll have time just for us." Next week never came. I stopped waiting for it. The nights grew quieter. I started leaving my phone in another room, so I wouldn't have to see the messages she didn't send. The bed felt too big, but at least it was honest. One evening, after another canceled plan, this time for my best friend's engagement dinner, I decided I'd had enough. I found a small apartment across town, a quiet place with old wooden floors and a view of the park. The next morning, I started packing. It took her 3 days to notice. When she finally did, I was loading boxes into my car. She walked into the room, her face pale and confused. "Ethan, what the hell is this? Why are your things gone?" I took a deep breath. "Because I'm gone, Marissa." She blinked like she hadn't heard me right. "You're joking." I handed her an envelope, a letter I'd written the night before, when I realized that talking to her face-to-face never worked. Words got twisted in arguments, lost in noise. On paper, at least, I could say what I meant. She tore it open and read silently, her expression shifting from disbelief to anger. "This is insane," she snapped. "You're ending us because I have friends." I looked at her, trying not to raise my voice. "No, I'm ending this because I don't exist in your world anymore. You're always somewhere else, at someone's party, fixing someone's problem, laughing at someone else's jokes. I'm tired of waiting for scraps of your time. Her eyes filled with tears, but her words were sharp. You're being dramatic. I told you I'd make it up to you. You just have to be patient. I've been patient, I said. For 2 years. We argued for hours. Every point I made, she deflected with guilt or nostalgia. Every time I said, you chose them over me, she'd counter with they needed me. By the end, I wasn't even angry anymore. Just empty. That night, I left my key on the kitchen counter right next to the mug she always used. I didn't slam the door. I didn't take one last look around. I just walked away. The next morning, my phone buzzed with messages, first from her, then from numbers I didn't recognize. Fiend, Chloe, Adrian, even Tasha. Unbelievable. Do you realize what you've done to her? She gave you everything. You're emotionally manipulative. She's heartbroken. Heartbroken. The word hit differently when it came from the people who'd helped build the distance between us. For days, they flooded my phone with guilt and anger. I didn't respond. I deleted numbers, blocked messages, muted notifications. Still, their words lingered in my mind like smoke in a closed room. Then came the day they showed up. It was a gray Saturday morning. I was unpacking books in my new apartment when the buzzer rang. I thought it was a delivery. But when I looked out the window, I saw them. Marissa standing in front, flanked by her friends. Finn had his hands shoved into his pockets, jaw tight. Tasha crossed her arms, glaring up at my window. Chloe looked like she'd been crying. I felt my stomach twist. They started shouting my name from below. Ethan, we need to talk. Finn's voice carried across the street. You can't just ghost people like this. I went downstairs, not because I wanted to talk, but because I didn't want to be that neighbor whose ex caused a scene in the courtyard. When I stepped outside, Marissa rushed forward. You blocked me, she said, her voice trembling. You just left. No would no closure. I said goodbye in a letter. I replied quietly. That's not closure, Finn cut in. That's cowardice. I looked at him. This isn't your relationship, Finn. It's hers, he shot back. And she's shattered because of you. Chloe sniffled, whispering something about how I'd isolated her. Tasha glared like I'd committed some moral crime. It was surreal, being confronted by people who had never once asked how I felt when Marissa canceled plans for them, who'd never seen the nights I spent alone. I'm done talking, I said, stepping back. You all need to leave. When Finn moved closer, I called the building's security guard, a quiet man named Leo, who'd already warned them once to stay off the property. Within minutes, Leo appeared, asking them politely but firmly to go. Marissa's eyes filled with fury. This isn't over, Ethan, she shouted as they backed away. You can't just erase me. I didn't answer. I just stood there as they disappeared around the corner, their voices fading into the distance. The first weeks after leaving Marissa felt like a fever breaking. There was silence, not the cold, punishing kind, but the kind that lets you finally hear yourself think. No more late-night arguments. No buzzing phone full of guilt-laced messages. No endless explanations for why I mattered too. I unpacked slowly, box by box, like each item was reclaiming a small piece of me. My new apartment smelled of old wood and rain. The windows rattled when the wind picked up, and I liked it that way. It felt human, imperfect, mine. The nights were strange, though. I'd reach for my phone, half expecting her name to light up the screen. When it didn't, there was relief, then loneliness. I learned how to cook for one again, how to sleep diagonally, how to fill a Saturday with no plans and no apologies. The first few texts came within days of the breakup. Short, panicked, then angry, then sad. I don't understand how you can just walk away like this. You said you love me. You're overreacting, Ethan. Please just talk to me. I didn't reply. Every message felt like a hand reaching out to pull me back into a fire I'd already burned in. Then the messages from her friends started. Do you realize what you've done to her? She's crying every night. You always made her feel small. It amazed me how people who never saw us alone could suddenly speak with such authority. I stopped reading them, blocked one number after another until the noise died out. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful at first. It was heavy, full of phantom sounds. Her laugh, her footsteps in the hall, her voice calling from the other room. But gradually, it softened into something bearable. When you spend so long being an afterthought, solitude starts to feel like a luxury. By the second month, the world began to color itself again. I threw myself into work, graphic design deadlines, client meetings, late-night coffee runs. My boss, who'd been side-eyeing my distraction for months, finally smiled and said, "You're back." He didn't know how right he was. One Friday, my coworker Lena invited me out for drinks with her group. I almost said no, habit, maybe, but then I thought about how small my life had become, how quiet. So I went. The bar was loud, the air thick with laughter and cheap perfume. People leaned in too close to be heard, spilling secrets over glasses of rum and half-forgotten songs. I didn't talk much. I just listened, watched. It struck me how free everyone looked. No constant need to perform, no eyes scanning the room for someone else's validation. Just people being present. It made me realize how long I'd been living as a guest in my own relationship, always waiting for permission to matter. That night, walking home under the streetlights, I passed a couple holding hands. They were arguing softly, nothing dramatic, just two people figuring each other out. It made me smile. Love wasn't supposed to be easy, but it also wasn't supposed to feel like begging. 3 months after I left, I ran into Chloe. It was pure coincidence. A gray afternoon in a downtown bookstore. She was holding a book about emotional dependency of all things. When she saw me, she froze, then offered a hesitant smile. "Ethan, wow, you look different." I returned the smile, though it didn't reach my eyes. I get that a lot. We made small talk for a while. How work was going, how she'd been. She looked uneasy, like she was standing on a fragile bridge between loyalty and guilt. Finally, she sighed. "I guess you've heard things are messy." "Messy," I echoed. "The group," she said. "You know how close we all were? It's not the same anymore." I didn't respond, just waited. She looked down at the book in her hands. "Adrian got engaged to Emma. They're planning a wedding, moving in together. It's amazing, but Marissa isn't taking it well. She keeps saying he's abandoning the team. Like, we're supposed to stay this little family forever." I almost laughed, but it came out as a sigh. "People grow up, Chloe. They find their own lives." I told her that, she said quietly. She didn't want to hear it. Apparently, things had changed fast after I left. Adrian's engagement was the first domino. Tasha and Finn, the inseparable duo of sarcasm and chaos, had started dating too, and the dynamic that once revolved around Marissa began to shift. Suddenly, everyone was pairing off, moving on, focusing on themselves. And Marissa couldn't handle being left behind. "She's been trying to keep everyone together," Chloe continued. "Game nights, weekend trips, dinners. But no one shows up anymore." I nodded slowly, unsure what I felt. Pity? No, not quite. Recognition, maybe that hollow fear of watching people drift away, the same fear that made her cling so hard in the first place. Chloe looked at me, hesitant. "She still talks about you, you know. So she messed up, that she wishes she'd listened." I took a breath, steady and calm. "She probably does. But that doesn't change anything." Chloe nodded, like she already knew the answer. We said goodbye, and as I walked out into the drizzle, I felt lighter, not vindicated, just free. Some stories end quietly, and that's okay. A week later, I got a message from an unknown number. I knew who it was before I opened it. "Hey, it's Marissa. I'm not trying to start anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Maybe we could talk. Just coffee. No expectations." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the keyboard. There was a time I would have replied instantly, desperate to fix what wasn't broken in my favor. Now, I just turned off the phone and went to bed. The next day, "I know I hurt you. I didn't realize how much. I miss you, Ethan. I really do." Still, I said nothing. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. I'd finally learned that not every apology deserves a response. Over the next few days, the messages came slower. By the end of the week, they stopped altogether. The silence that followed didn't ache anymore. It just was. Fall crept in quietly. The city turned golden, the air cool enough for jackets and late-night walks. I started going to the gym again, reconnected with college friends, even joined a photography group. It felt good to be part of something that didn't demand loyalty, just presence. One Friday, my old college friend Nate invited me to a concert. We stood in the middle of a crowd, music pulsing like electricity through our veins. No one filmed it for Instagram. No one cared how they looked. I laughed so hard my throat hurt, and in that moment I realized I hadn't missed Marissa. I'd missed myself. After the show, Nate slapped my shoulder. Dude, you're finally alive again. I guess I am, I said, meaning it. 2 months later, I saw her again. It was completely by accident. A cold December evening in a quiet Italian restaurant I'd never been to before. I was there with a few coworkers celebrating a successful project. We were finishing dessert when I noticed her at the corner table, sitting alone. She was swirling a glass of red wine, her reflection flickering in the candlelight. The years of laughter and noise that used to follow her were gone. There was a stillness about her I'd never seen before, and maybe she hated it, maybe she needed it. I couldn't tell. She looked up and saw me. Our eyes met. A small smile, a nod, a silent question. Can we talk? Against my better judgment, I walked over. Hi, I said quietly. E. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. You look good. So do you, I lied. She looked exhausted, not physically, but in the way people look when they've been running from themselves for too long. She gestured to the empty seat. Seat. I hesitated, then sat. The silence between us was heavy, but not hostile, just full of ghosts. After a moment, she spoke. I've been meaning to say this in person. I am sorry, Etan, for everything. I was blind. I thought I could juggle it all, you, my friends, my world. I didn't realize I was pushing you out. I didn't interrupt. She needed to say it more than I needed to hear it. She continued, her voice trembling. Everything's changed now. Adrian's engaged. Emma keeps him grounded. Chloe moved to Portland for work. Finn and Tasha, they're taking a break from the group. It's like everyone's moving on, and I'm just standing still. That's what happens, I said gently. People evolve. She laughed, a short, broken sound. You sound like Chloe. I guess she's getting smarter. She smiled faintly. You always did know how to make a point. For a moment, she reached across the table, her hand brushing the air between us. I miss you, she whispered. Not because I'm lonely, because you were the only one who ever asked me to stop pretending. That hit somewhere deep, but not enough to undo anything. I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't see the girl I fell in love with anymore. Just someone I used to know. I appreciate you saying that, I told her softly. But it doesn't change the ending. Her eyes shimmered under the candlelight. I know, she said. I just needed to say it. We sat there a moment longer, the noise of the restaurant fading around us. Then I stood, dropped a few bills on the table, and smiled. Not with bitterness, but with peace. Take care, Marissa. You too, Ethan. As I walked out into the night, the cold air bit at my cheeks. For the first time, I didn't look back. A few weeks later, Adrian and Emma's engagement photos appeared online. Sunlight, laughter, and something that looked a lot like real love. Chloe commented congratulations from Portland. Finn and Tasha were off on some tropical trip, smiling like they'd forgotten winter existed. Marissa wasn't tagged in any of it. Her name had quietly disappeared from the captions, the comments, the inside jokes. The team she once worshipped had dissolved, scattered by time and growth. I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't feel vindicated either. Just detached. Like watching the final scene of a movie you already knew the ending to. A month later, I got one last message. No number saved. No photo. Just words on a screen. I hope you're okay. I really mean it. I'm learning to let go. I stared at it for a moment, then typed back. You will. One day. Then I blocked the number, not out of anger, but out of mercy. For both of us. Outside, snow was falling softly against the window. I turned off my phone and sat there, letting the quiet fill the room. Love had burned. Friendship had watched. And I had finally walked out of the fire. Weeks turned into months, but the silence between us never really healed. It just learned to exist like scar tissue, dull but permanent. Marissa stopped calling. The last message I got from her was almost polite, as if she'd rehearsed it for days. I understand. I'll stop reaching out. I hope you're okay. But the thing about silence is it lies. because even when the messages stopped coming, I still felt her shadow flickering somewhere in the background. Every time my phone buzzed from an unknown number, part of me wondered if it was her. And sometimes it was hidden behind fake profiles, anonymous numbers, one-line text that said nothing but carried her tone. Do you ever miss me? You could have fought harder. They said you look lonely. I didn't answer any of them, but I read every word. I always did. The new apartment was quiet, too quiet at first. The nights felt endless, every sound amplified. I'd lie awake listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the distant noise of traffic, my own breathing. But eventually, the silence stopped feeling like a punishment. It started to feel like proof that I was free. I focused on work. My boss noticed the change, said I looked more grounded, more serious. I didn't tell her that it wasn't peace she was seeing. It was exhaustion mistaken for composure. I started seeing my old friends again, the ones I'd drifted away from because being with Marissa meant living inside her world. They didn't ask many questions, and I was grateful for that. We went to bars, watched games, talked about everything except love. There was comfort in that kind of emptiness. Predictable, safe. And yet, every once in a while, I'd catch myself checking her social media, even though I'd promised not to. The group looked different now, smaller. Adrian had proposed Emma. They moved to Seattle, judging by their photos. The engagement post had hundreds of likes, but Marissa's comment was just a single red heart. Too simple to be genuine, too forced to be ignored. Then came Chloe's new job announcement. She'd been promoted and transferred to Portland. The caption read, "New city, new chapter." I didn't see Marissa's name among the comments. Finn and Tasha, the inseparable duo, were now officially a couple. The photos of them holding hands looked awkward, like they were pretending to be something romantic when it was really just desperation. Two people clinging to what was left of the group. Marissa still posted pictures, smiling, always surrounded by someone, always trying to look untouched. But her eyes gave her away. There was a sharpness there now, a certain loneliness only visible to those who once knew the softness behind it. I stopped looking after that. It was almost half a year later when her name appeared on my screen again. This time, it wasn't a fake number or an unknown profile. It was her. "Hey, Ethan. I know it's been a while. Can we talk? Maybe grab a coffee?" I stared at the message for a long time. The same way you stare at a fire. You know it can burn you, but you can't look away. I didn't reply that day, or the next. But curiosity has a cruel way of breaking your resolve. A week later, another message came. "I just want to say sorry. That's all. Please." Against my better judgment, I said yes. We met at a small restaurant near the river. The same one where we'd once celebrated her birthday, long before everything went wrong. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at the corner table, stirring her coffee without drinking it. She looked different. Not older, just quieter. The confidence she once wore like perfume was gone, replaced by something heavier. Guilt, maybe, or regret. When she saw me, her lips trembled into a small smile. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us wasn't comfortable. It was filled with ghosts. She took a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. About us." I nodded, waiting. "I didn't see it then," she said. "How much I took you for granted. I kept telling myself my friends were my family, that they'd always be there. But they weren't. Not the way I thought." Her voice cracked slightly. "When Adrian got engaged, he stopped coming around. Chloe moved away. Tasha and Finn I don't even know what they are anymore. We try to keep the group together, but it's just gone. And I keep wondering if that's what I deserve." Her eyes met mine. "I miss you, Ethan. I miss what we had. Maybe we could try again." The words hit like a slow echo from a life that didn't exist anymore. For a second, part of me wanted to say yes, to believe that things could go back, that love could still be rebuilt from ashes. But I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw what I hadn't before. The same hunger to be needed. The same fear of being alone. She didn't want me. She wanted the version of herself she used to be when I was still there. "I'm glad you came," I said finally. "And I'm glad you understand now. But I'm not coming back." She blinked like she didn't hear me. "You're serious?" "I am." Her lips parted, trembling. "After everything we went through?" I nodded, especially after that. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't cry. She just looked at me like she was trying to memorize the person she once loved. I ruined us, didn't I? She whispered. I didn't answer. Sometimes silence is kinder than the truth. After a while, she stood up, brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, and gave me a small, broken smile. Goodbye, Ethan. Goodbye, Marissa. When she walked away, I didn't watch her go. I just sat there, staring at the empty cup between my hands, realizing that closure doesn't come with forgiveness. It comes with finality. A few months later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that the group was done. Adrian and Emma got married. Chloe didn't come back from Portland. Tasha and Finn broke up after one too many fights. And Marissa? No one really knew. She'd stopped posting, stopped showing up. It was like she'd vanished from the map entirely. Sometimes late at night, I think about her, not with longing, but with the strange tenderness reserved for people who once made you believe in something that turned out to be fragile. Love had burned bright between us, but friendship, hers and mine, had stood there watching, unmoved, as everything turned to ash. And now, in the quiet of my new life, I finally understood something I hadn't before. Some fires aren't meant to be put out. They're meant to consume you, so that, when they're done, all that's left is the version of you that can finally stand in the smoke without choking.